You're very welcome on to the Matchbook Football Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, and delighted to be joined by Mark O'Haire and Adrian Clarke. As the club season hits into gear between now and Christmas time, we take a look at some great Champions League ties this week, including Arsenal, Bayern, Chelsea, Barcelona, Atletico, Inter, and PSG versus Tottenham. So plenty of talking points. Before we get going, insights.matchbook.com, full recap of all the guys' picks. If you can take 2 seconds, hit that like button wherever you're watching or listening, and let you know about our current best offer out there. If you enter the bonus code POD50, and we see a lot of people this year entering that bonus code POD50. If you don't have a Matchbook account and you want to set up, you get £50 worth in free bets when you bet £50. Full T's and C's available on insights.matchbook.com or matchbook.com/promotions. Let's start with Arsenal versus Bayern, Adrian. So this gives us a great little segue into briefly mentioning.
Do we have to talk about Arsenal?
Less than a minute in, Mark. Less than a minute in. Nap lands. Great win from Arsenal. It felt like, I know in the moment, like I thought Thomas Frank's approach was brutal. I don't know what you thought about it, but look, Arsenal, Eze getting the hat trick. You bigged up Eze, in fairness. Just a great win, and they take on Bayern Munich now on Wednesday. The big games keep on coming.
They do, yeah. Thomas Frank set his stall out with a pretty defeatist starting 11, didn't he? And his players played like they were, defeated. I think they didn't play with any great kind of conviction that they believed that they could beat Arsenal. Yeah, I was pleased that I did give a shout out to sort of Arsenal to win and Eze to score. But yeah, my unders one, I think I got the tone right in terms of how Spurs would approach it, but Arsenal were just too good for Tottenham Hotspur in the end. I think I'd said under 3.5 goals. So yeah, it was richly deserved, excellent performance, and just the right balance, I thought, from Arsenal between aggression and hostility and intelligence. So some really smart play, some good movement, and excellent positioning, and then there's just some really good fast football. It just feels like a lot of Arsenal's players are in the groove at the moment, and they're sensing that they can produce something special this season. This game's a strange one, isn't it? Because both teams have been flying in the Champions League, absolutely outstanding. Probably been the two best teams in the competition so far. But it just kind of means less, doesn't it? In terms of, maybe the winner will view, themselves as almost very likely to finish top two. And that could be really, really important, I guess, for the run of, all the way towards the latter stage. I don't know. But for Arsenal, it falls in between two big league games, two big London derbies. And for me, the Chelsea game is a far, far bigger game for Arsenal, far more important game, the chance to sort of extend a 9-point lead over them than a match they can afford to lose against Bayern and obviously still qualify top 8. So it's a strange situation. No, Mikel Arteta, how I do, I think he will take it as seriously as he would if Arsenal were sat somewhere else in the division. I think he'll really want to take the scalp. And I think he'll go for it. There might be 1 or 2 changes, but nothing more than that. I just think it's going to be a great game. A shootout, not much pressure on either team. Both will want to lay a little bit of a marker down ahead of a potential reunion in the knockout stages. I could absolutely see these two meeting again later on in the competition. So, yeah, and these are two teams that pretty good going forward. Bayern exceptional going forward. No Luis Diaz, which is obviously a blow for them, but Kane, terrific, obviously, and Elise has been in amazing form. I just think that Bayern will attack the game. Bayern will actually play. They'll turn up at Emirates like no team has turned up at Emirates, and they'll turn up to win, and they'll turn up to play attacking football. So it'll be something new for Arsenal, and it should be a lot of fun. I mean, every Bayern game in the Bundesliga and the Champions League this season has gone over 2.5 goals, which crazy, really. So that's my pick. I'm going to get it out there nice and early. Overs is definitely my pick here. I don't know who's going to win. But 1.8, I think, is a really good value price. And we know that Arsenal have a good defence. We know that Arsenal, will set out to be strong at the back. But no Gabriel. There might be 1 or 2 tweaks to the back four. I don't know ahead of this game. But yeah, just Bayern are just almost not impossible to contain, but they're very, very difficult to stop. And I think it will be a relatively open game because the pressure is off. Arsenal, now that they've set the tone with that brilliant win against Spurs, can sort of just carry on where they left off, I guess, and really try and go for Bayern and create another statement win. Obviously, smash Atletico. They'd love to do something similar to Bayern, who have actually been conceding a lot of set-piece goals lately. That's been a problem for them. So even though Arsenal did the damage in open play against Spurs, don't write off the possibility of a goal from a corner or a wide free kick against Bayern, because they haven't really defended them that well. So, yeah, I see a great game here between two excellent teams. And, yeah, I'm going overs all the way.
Okay, that's 1.8 over 2.5 goals. And Mark, a couple of points Adrian raised. Firstly, the bigger game being Chelsea, but again, he mentioned we've seen Arteta take every game seriously, Champions League, Premier League. But secondly, on Bayern's approach at the Emirates, there's no other way they can play based on being over 2.5 every game than just go for the win here.
Yeah, I agree with everything Adrian said, really. On paper, this should be an absolute corker, but there is a little bit less jeopardy involved because of the league phase, because these two teams have been perfect so far, so they both got a bit of leeway in the last 4 match days. Arsenal still have to go to Inter. Bayern have got quite a straightforward schedule from here, so it's probably well, it definitely is the toughest final game for these two teams across the league phase. So, and if you look at Arsenal so far, obviously only a small sample, but the 2 Champions League games, they won relatively comfortably, but they have been a little bit more open, I'd say, than perhaps their Premier League games at Emirates Stadium. Both Olympiacos and Atletico managed double-figure shots. Atletico probably could have scored and probably should have scored, really. And yeah, if you look at the Champions League so far as a whole, 67% of the league phase games after the first 4 match days have gone overs. So I think any opportunity to support overs in a game involving Bayern at a palatable price has to be strongly considered. As Adrian says, it's got a 100% success rate this season. And this is a team, as you say, Dan, who will turn up and try and win the game. They're unbeaten in 18 across all comps this season. They've dropped points just once in the Bundesliga. That record includes a 16-game winning streak, which is a European record. They've already beaten Chelsea with room to spare in Munich, and had an exceptional performance away at PSG in the last match day too. That's the game when Luis Diaz was even sent off, and they still marshalled that second half superbly. Elise played centrally at the weekend and starred again. Leonard Carl, their new teenage star, impressed too. He did go off injured. So there is a chance here that they might drop Kane deeper and start Nicholas Jackson up front, because Serge Gnabry is also an injury doubt. But expect Kimmich and Lima to come back into the team. They were rested at the weekend when they went 2-0 down, roared back and won 6-2 against Freiburg. Defensively, they have improved under Kompany. But Tar, Upamecano, who have been pretty solid for the most part, I still feel they have the capacity to make a glaring error at times. So they don't completely convince me from a defensive standpoint, but obviously going forward, goals are almost always guaranteed. Those 18 games of Bayern across all comps are averaging 4.39 goals. 12 of the 18 went over 3.5. 11 saw both sides score. Of their 10 matches outside of Munich, 8 saw both teams score. 6 went over 3.5 goals. In the Champions League, we've had both teams scoring 3 or 4. And they've only kept 2 clean sheets in 16 away Champions League matches now, which is quite a terrible record for a team of their stature. So, Arsenal, we'd be buzzing after the weekend. As you say, they've got Chelsea at the weekend, so they may tinker a little bit too. I think you just got to support goals in a Bayern game when you get 1.8 offered to you, even against a defence as strong as Arsenal. So, happy to back over 2.5 goals. And just as a side point, obviously neither of us are getting involved in the actual match winner here, but Arsenal are going to go off their biggest price at the Emirates in a European game since 2018, if you like that sort of thing. So, on the surface, they do look quite a big price, but Bayern obviously in a pretty mean form themselves.
Wow, interesting stat there. So over 2.5 goals agreement, 1.8 from Mark and Adrian. And interesting on Kane. He's done very well in that 10 position when Jackson's come into the team. So interesting what team Bayern put out. Now, this is going to be our £10 money back special, Chelsea versus Barcelona, Tuesday night. We're going to take a look at Mark's opinion here. So Chelsea, not a great first half. Mark, didn't quite go the way we expected at times, but then started the second half, they clicked into gear against Burnley. How do you see them and assess them ahead of a big week? So they've got Barca on Tuesday, and we've touched on already Sunday afternoon at home to Arsenal, 6 points behind them.
Yeah, I'm still not bought into Chelsea. They might be second in the Premier League, but they're not title challengers in my book. I don't think they're the second best team in the Premier League either. But tricky circumstances on Saturday. We said that on the podcast last midweek going into that game. Our first fixture, the early kickoff away from home on a Saturday straight after the international break isn't ideal. Obviously, Moises Caicedo was left out, rested. Andre Santos played well in his part, but Caicedo will come in, give them a bit of a boost in midfield. They're spreading the goals around quite nicely in Cole Palmer's absence, which is a plus. Yeah, and I suspect they'll be able to cause Barcelona some damage here too. Barca have shipped 2 goals or more in 6 of 9 away games this season. And in 7 of those matches, they were priced up at 1.77 favourites or shorter. So clean sheets have been an issue for Barca for quite some time. If you go away from home in the Champions League, they've not kept an away clean sheet since the opening day of La Liga across all competitions. And if you look purely at the Champions League, they've conceded 2 goals or more in 9 of 12 away. In 5 of those 12 games, they shipped at least 3 goals, and it's 2 clean sheets in 22 away Champions League games now here. So Chelsea will score here. I'm pretty sure they will. They might even possibly score twice or more. It's just how can they sort of contain Barca? That's the issue, really. But Barca, we've just talked about Bayern Munich, but Barcelona almost guarantee goals and entertainment themselves. They were back at the Camp Nou at the weekend for the first time in what feels like forever. Registered a pretty straightforward win over Athletic Club, but they were without Pedri and Frankie de Jong. Eric Garcia stepped into midfield, played surprisingly well, actually, but de Jong is back here. So, but Pedri's missing, and I think there's a big blow for that midfield. Interesting to see how Hansi Flick shapes it. Now that de Jong is back, Rashford should be available again. So in forward areas, they're not far off full strength. Rafinha will be fit enough for the bench. So it's just defensively where the problems are at. And we've talked about it many times on the podcast. The high line hasn't been anywhere near as efficient this season. That starts with the press from the front. The pressure on the ball hasn't been as relentless this season either. And it's been reflected in their big chances conceded numbers, because teams have had great joy timing their runs, beating the offside trap, and often just running straight through the middle of this Barcelona team. They've given up 32 big chances in 13 La Liga games, 24 in 7 away games. Only 6 clubs have given up more big chances in La Liga, and no side in La Liga has faced more big chances when playing away from home than Barcelona, which is quite an astonishing statistic. Only 6 clubs have faced a higher MPXG figure on their travels as well in La Liga. And because that they're opened up so easily, the XG per shot is the highest in Spain, and also in the top 10 in the Champions League too. So for me, they're just not really trustworthy when they're giving up so many good opportunities, especially without Pedri in midfield. So I'm kind of happy to sort of swerve the match outcome here, focus on goals, because I think both teams should be able to get on the score sheet quite comfortably here. As I say, how are Chelsea going to contain Lewandowski, Yamal, Varane, Rashford, Firmin? Very hard to kind of keep those boys quiet for 90 minutes, especially with Rafinha coming off the bench. So going to go with goals over 3.5 as odds against 2.06. That has landed in 16 of Barca's last 21 in this competition, including 8 of the last 12 away from home, as well as 3 or 4 Chelsea games in this competition this season. So, and if you look at the Champions League as a whole, after 4 match days, half of those matches have featured over 3.5 goals. We're getting 2.06 here for repeat. So happy to be on that.
Okay, yeah, so that's over 3.5 goals, 2.06. And Adrian, Mark saying the game's screaming goals. I'm finding it hard to come up with the angle against goals, given where these two sides are at and Barcelona's approach in particular.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, this feels like it's going to be a fun game, definitely. The numbers are scary in terms of like goals involving Barcelona games. Mark's read out a load of them there, hasn't he? 16 or 17 matches, gone over 2.5 goals for Barcelona. 14 on the spin, gone over 2.5 goals. Chelsea, they've been involved in a lot of pretty good games as well. 13 of their 15 games, or last 15 in all comps, have also gone over 2.5 goals. So that's part of my angle here. Definitely going with goals. We're just playing it 1 goal safer than Mark. I'm willing to put my sort of neck on the line for Barca rather than Chelsea. I'm hearing Mark about that openness, and Hansi Flick is notorious for sort of pushing up and playing this sort of very risky game. And Chelsea definitely have the wide players, don't they? In Estevao and Garnacho to sort of make those runs in beyond. Enzo Fernandez makes a lot of good forward runs too. Delap is a powerful player. João Pedro is playing really well actually at the moment. So they do have the tools to give Barcelona problems and to score, but I'm not sure about them at the back at all. I just think, Yeah, I think they're really average. I think it's a kind of a mid-table defense. If I'm being truthful here, and yeah, I agree, Mark. I don't think they're the second best team in the country. If you look at their record against the top 10 in the Premier League this season, they did beat Spurs away, but they drew with Palace at home, lost at Man United, and lost at home to Sunderland and to Brighton. So, against teams that have been in good form, Chelsea haven't really delivered that much. And the Champions League as well, look, they lost to Bayern quite comfortably. Yeah, they beat Benfica and Ajax, but Benfica and Ajax have been absolutely woeful, two of the worst teams in the competition. And then they drew with Karabakh. So again, I feel like they're in a slightly false position, Chelsea, in both big competitions. And yeah, I'm just thinking back to Barcelona going to Newcastle, winning the game, being very, very dangerous whenever they went forward. And for me, Newcastle are better defensively than Chelsea. So I'm going to go with over 2.5 goals and Barcelona double chance. So they can draw the game, and this still comes in. This bet has landed in 13 of 17 matches for Barcelona this season, and I think it can again. So yeah, Barca double chance over 2.5 comes in at 2.38.
Okay, that's for Adrian's selection. Mark's over 3.5, but we want to sort of combine the guys in a £10 money back special. So basically back this following bet and get your money back as a free bet if it loses up to £10 on the Matchbook Bet Builder. So Mark made the case for the third leg here. So we put over 3.5 goals. Both teams have scored. It's fairly self-explanatory. So what's the third leg?
Something a little bit different, but it's offered on the Matchbook Bet Builder, so why not? Chelsea to have over 2.5 offsides. Boost the price then up to 2.63. And look, we know about Barcelona's offside record. It's outrageous, really. But this season, they've played 17 games across all competitions. Their opposition's average offsides per game comes in at 4.06. Away from home, 7 of their 9 teams they've played have got at least three offsides. 5 of those have had 4 or more offsides as well. And if you look at Chelsea's record, they are averaging 2 offsides per game across all their games so far this season. So just to get one more against the offside kings, if you like, does appeal with a little bit of a boost there to the price. So yeah, over 3.5 goals, both teams to score, and Chelsea to have 3 offsides or more.
Okay, that's 2.63. That's Chelsea over 2.5 offsides. And check out the Matchbook Bet Builder. Full T's and C's, insights.matchbook.com. Adrian, might go to you for Atletico versus Inter. This is a fun game, isn't it? I mean, it screams, in the good old days, unders, cards, etc. Does it scream like that nowadays? I mean, obviously, Inter off the back of the Milan derby.
Not really. No, I mean, yeah, they'll be dismarting when they lost that game. I mean, they've given a lot of the ball into Milan this season. They've got a lot of good forward options, haven't they? And obviously, Thuram and Martinez, but Esposito and Boni have both done pretty well as well, making contributions under Shivu. They're doing all right into Milan. And in the Champions League, they have that perfect record alongside Arsenal and Bayern Munich. But dig a little bit deeper, and you don't have to dig very far. And maybe there's an explanation in terms of why Inter are flying in the Champions League. They've played Ajax, absolutely awful. Slavia Prague, not that bad actually, but it's Slavia Prague, a team they should beat. They've played Union Saint-Gilloise, who've been battered by various teams in the competition, including Newcastle 4-0. And they've played Kairat, maybe the smallest, biggest underdogs in the competition. So for me, they've had a ridiculously easy ride until this point into Milan, and this is a huge step up. Going to the Metropolitano to play Atletico Madrid is a different thing altogether. We know all about their record there. It's excellent. And there's no Oblak at the moment, so that's worth noting. But Alvarez I thought was great in the game against Arsenal. He's always worth a goal, and he's creative. And they've also goals been coming from Griezmann lately as well, and Simeone's been creating, and Llorente as well. There's been a few players in decent form. They're actually unbeaten, aren't they, in La Liga since match week 1, Atletico. So hard to beat. They've won 5 on the spin. And I think on home turf, they can take Inter Milan down. They need it. This is a big game for Atletico Madrid. They're only on 6 points. I think they need it a little bit more than Inter Milan need it. So that edge is absolutely going to be there from Simeone's side. Look, you look at Inter as well. They did beat Roma away 1-0, which is a great result. But in terms of top 6 games, they did lose to Juve. They lost to Milan at the weekend. They lost to Napoli as well. So a little bit like Chelsea, when they've had quite an easy run, and when they've faced anyone decent, Inter have come up short. So I'm just going to back Atletico on the nose here. We know how strong they are on home turf, especially in Europe. 2.34 is, for me, quite an attractive price. So that's why I'm on it.
Okay, more on Atletico later on with Adrian's selections. Mark, on Atletico, we've spoken a lot about them and the extra goals. Then on Inter, you agree on that easy schedule? We actually had this debate on the NFL podcast in terms of easy schedule. It's not Inter's fault they've had that easy Champions League schedule. They've got the wins, but at some point you've got to take that into account and try and get yourself a value play.
Oh yeah, it's very important to notice it, because they've had 4 pretty straightforward games, but after this they've got Atletico obviously midweek. They've still got away days. Where are they? I've lost my notes, but they've got some tough away games still to come. Obviously, the way the fixtures have fallen, but they're in a great position. Whereas Atletico need to get a result after sort of having 2 tough away days already at Liverpool and Arsenal, falling up short. But they're a different beast at the Metropolitano. They come into this having won 14 of their last 16 home games across La Liga and the Champions League. But I went much further than that and saw that Atletico have lost just 4 of the last 68 home league and Champions League games going back to January 2023. Barcelona accounted for 2 of those defeats, Lille and Osasuna the other 2. It's 11 wins in 12 home Champions League games, and 1 home loss in 17 Champions League games going back to November 2021. So look, I'm not completely bought into this current Atletico side, but there's no doubt they command huge respect when playing at home. They slammed Real Madrid here earlier this season. They slammed Eintracht Frankfurt as well for 5. They showed their resilience at the weekend to come through a tough away day at Getafe, a match immediately after an international break. That's not the opposition you really want to play away from home. But Marcus Llorente went off in that game, but let's hope that he'll be fit for this. But yeah, they weren't completely convincing at Getafe, but I thought away at Arsenal and Liverpool, their only defeats across all competitions this season since the opening day. They did okay in patches in both of those matches. But yeah, you look at Inter, they'll be really frustrated by losing the derby on Sunday night. Dominated the first half, hit the woodwork twice, then had a penalty saved in the second half, got done on the counter-attack. And that's been an issue for them this season, conceding goals on the counter-attack. And they've got a concerning record now developing against the better teams they've played domestically, having lost to Juventus, Napoli and Milan now this season. So they have got the best team, the best squad in Serie A, but it's just not coming together for them consistently right now. Their perfect record in the Champions League does probably give them a little bit of a different mindset here. They can probably, I'm playing a bit of amateur psychologist, but do they go here knowing that a point will keep them in pretty strong contention for a top 8 finish? Possibly. They've got Arsenal, Liverpool and Dortmund after this. So no easy fixtures. So perhaps they come here and try and play for the win. Who knows? But it's a tricky one on the surface, but happy to side with Atletico's home form here. I'm going to back Atletico double chance against Inter, who have won just twice in 13 away games in the Champions League when priced up at 2.5 or bigger. So Atletico double chance, and I'm going to include both teams to be booked. And we're getting, what price was it? 1.8 on that combination, because we've got Francois Letexier, the Frenchman, refereeing here, and he's given at least 3 cards in 16 of his last 19 in Europe, 3 or more in 10 of 12 across all comps this season, averaging 5.5 cards this season. And normally when a Spanish and Italian team clash, you don't normally require too much extra effort to collect a couple of cards. Both are quite feisty by nature. Atletico have seen both sides booked in the last 7 Champions League games. It also has occurred in 16 of Inter's last 18 in Europe as well. So playing a little bit safer from Adrian, but Atleti double chance and both sides booked is 1.8.
Okay, so pick what approach you want to do there. Double chance Atletico, both teams card at 1.8 or 2.34 on the nose from Adrian. PSG versus Spurs. And Mark might get the neutrals reaction to Spurs and Thomas Frank. Back 5 worked very well against PSG. Effectively didn't work the last days. They're double bluff going into this game. Had he already planned to play that back 5 for the next couple of games? He could be under a little bit of pressure if this week doesn't go too well.
He should be already under pressure. I didn't feel he was the right man for the job in the summer. And I think serious questions need to be asked now of his approach. I wonder whether he will start to adapt and sort of change out for the underdog mentality. Maybe not this midweek because it's PSG away, but I can understand him going defensive away at Arsenal in a local derby, but you need to offer something going forward. And to have your only goal being sort of an outrageously opportunist goal, 3-0 down, and offer literally nothing else, you're going to get heat for that. The two lowest XG totals by any team this season in the Premier League have both been by Tottenham, and both have come against their biggest rivals. And that's not good enough, really. So, yeah, on Sunday, Arsenal scored 4 goals. Spurs managed 4 touches in Arsenal's box in the entirety of the game. They failed to have a single first-half shot, and they were dreadful. They've now failed to fire any real punches and failed to impress at all against Villa, Chelsea, United, and Arsenal in recent Premier League matches. And yeah, it does leave you wondering how on earth he plans to improve matters just days later when you got to visit the European champions. So, yeah, you can look to the Super Cup game and say there's plenty of positives there in what Spurs did, but I completely ignore that match because it was PSG's first match back after pre-season. They opted to give their squad an extended break after winning the Champions League and competing in the Club World Cup, so they were nowhere near ready for that fixture. So, yeah, I think it's dangerous to look beyond anything in that match, basically. And, yeah, the evidence at hand suggests that Spurs are coming up short and struggling to do anything in forward areas. And, yeah, I think Thomas Frank is going to start coming under pressure if things don't change. He's been given a bit of a pass, I think, by the media because he does seem quite an all right bloke and he's not the sort of more brash and brazen as Postecoglou was with the media. But, yeah, things have to change. You can complain about injuries all you like, but Postecoglou had to deal with that too, and at least he made them relatively competitive in the big games. But yeah, it's difficult to be anything other here than pro PSG. So I'm going to back PSG to win without conceding. So PSG and BTTS no. It's 272, which is a huge increase on the PSG price of around 140. That's considering Spurs have barely been able to fire a shot in defeat against Arsenal, and Chelsea offered very little against Villa United, very little against Monaco and Villarreal in this competition as well. In 9 of their 16 League and Champions League games, they failed to hit one non-penalty expected goal. On only 4 sides have generated fewer big chances in the Premier League than Spurs. I've got them 4th bottom on expected points. In 7 games versus top half Premier League teams, they've averaged 0.62 expected goals. Their Champions League data is massively inflated by the home game against Copenhagen, who are missing basically half of their starters. But in the other 3 games against Monaco, Villarreal and Bodo, they failed to win any of the major metrics. So you're now playing a PSG team. Dembele is expected back, probably from the bench. Fabian Ruiz is back. You've also got Pacho, Marquinhos back available again. No Hakimi, but otherwise they're not far off full strength. Barcola and Kvaratskhelia were rested at the weekend, came off the bench, and PSG have kept 6 clean sheets in 8 home games this season. So they can be got at defensively, but presuming Frank doesn't overhaul his approach, I think 272 on PSG and BTTS no is too big.
Okay, big price. And Adrian, your agreement largely on the pro PSG. I mean, Spurs in the Champions League, anything to help their case there? Unbeaten.
They've been good away, haven't they? In general, like obviously until the Arsenal game, that their form was the best in the Premier League, wasn't it, on the road? And they'd been scoring goals actually. You know, remember they did go to Man City and win, but feels a long time ago, doesn't it? As does when they sort of put up a decent fight against PSG in the Super Cup. I agree with Mark that I think that can be largely discounted because they've only just come back from their holiday, really. The Parisians. So no, I agree with what Mark said. I think it was all fair and justified on Thomas Frank. He's a good underdog manager. Showed that at Brentford, but Spurs fans want more, and they have to get more in terms of creativity and going forward. They've been one of the least creative teams in the Premier League, and the same actually applies in the Champions League. Their shot counts very, very low in among the sort of the 36 teams. They're very much bottom half in all of the major attacking metrics. I just think PSG are a class apart. I'd put PSG obviously in a similar bracket to Arsenal, maybe even higher because they are the European champions. So if Arsenal can wallop them, I think PSG can as well. And I just looked at the body language of the players yesterday, and I just felt that they really lacked belief. Whether that was belief in the manager and his tactics, whether that was belief in themselves, I'm not sure. But they weren't really a united group. They didn't play with confidence on the ball, and they were making some really kind of rash decisions out of possession as well. They were getting pulled around left, right, and centre, and like that PSG midfield is absolutely mesmerising. Ruiz and Vitinha and Neves, and then you got the wingers. I just think those guys could have a bit of fun here, to be perfectly honest. So After losing to Bayern and deservedly losing, even though they're up against 10 men for quite a while, that will have stung them, I think, PSG. So I would expect a steely focus from Enrique's team. And obviously, as you know, Europa League winners Spurs, they command a bit of respect. So I wouldn't think they would take this lightly at all. PSG, they will be up for it big time, and I think they can score goals. They did smash Leverkusen, of course, 7-2. Was at Atlanta, I think 4. One at Barcelona as well this season, and there's still a sense that PSG haven't really got going. So, for me, PSG to win and to win well, I'm going to back them -1.5 goals. So any 2-goal margin victory or more will get the payout here. It's not as big a jump as win to nil. That was a good price. But for this, it's 2.14.
Okay, check out our Asian handicap markets. We will be the best price exchange pricing, very close to 100%, particularly on those Asian handicap markets the day or two before the game. Any other bets? We're going to do a little bit differently because some of them link to long shots. So one independent one is David Luiz's Pavos. Adrian, I've been bigging them up about their defensive approach. They finally got that victory. I was like, oh my God, I've bigged them up, and they've been brutal since. But fantastic 1-0 win there against Villarreal. They're the kings of just parking the bus, solid, led by somehow David Luiz, who's the king of defending all of a sudden now.
Legend, isn't he, David Luiz? I love it. And look, Paphos are just sort of a bit of a throwback team, aren't they? The days when you'd go away in Europe and it would just be so boring. They'd be just everything would be so tight and defensive and cautious, and teams wouldn't want to give up an away goal. Well, Paphos are sort of playing that way, aren't they? And look, Bayern smashed them, but no one else has really, and that was a great result against the Spaniards. So look, they're playing Monaco, and Monaco aren't in good nick at the moment. They're actually on the same points in the Champions League. Both got 5 points, so I think there's a situation here where both will be looking to stay in the race. Certainly wouldn't want to be losing the game. I said Monaco in not in a great way. They lost 4-1 to Lens and Rennes recently, since winning 1-0 at Buda Glimt. The problem for Monaco is they're not scoring goals. They've dried out. At the start of the season, Monaco were flying and they were scoring plenty of goals. Lately, not so. They've scored either 1 goal or none in 7 of their last 8 in all competitions, which doesn't bode well when you're going to David Luiz's Paphos, who will set their stall out first and foremost for a clean sheet. Paphos don't have a great attack. 3.1 XG across 4 Champions League games, 3rd worst. They've only scored twice. Monaco have only scored 4 goals, so 1 a game in the Champions League this season. Both teams have soaked up a lot of pressure and faced a lot of shots, actually, among the highest in the competition, but haven't actually conceded that many. They're pretty well organised, certainly Paphos, but also Monaco. I think Paphos are let in 5 and Monaco 6. So very, very low on goals scored and goals against so far in the competition. And I'm predicting more of the same. And one of the reasons I went straight to this game 4 unders for the reasons I've outlined, because I remember they've been both a bit goal shy and solid defensively. And when I saw the price on under 2.5 goals, I locked it in straight away. It's a price of 2.42. I think that's excellent.
Okay, sometimes if it just looks like a big price, it just might be. So 2.42, I might be joining you on the kings of the early kickoff, David Luiz's Pavos. We've got a question about Dortmund, actually, Mark. You've got 2 single selections here and then onto a long shot, which includes 2 of them. So if you'd like to just take those 2 single selections and then hit your racket, that'd be great.
Sure. We'll start with Dortmund, who are in a very solid position right now within reach of the top 8 and playing a Villarreal side who are out of the equation right now, just on 1 point. But they are only 3 off the top 24. So in need of results right now, especially after losing to Paphos, as you guys talked about there in the last round. So they need to go on the offensive here, really. They've been a little bit unfortunate. I wouldn't be completely drawn by their results so far because they have been quite unlucky, especially in the last 3 rounds where they've generated 9 big chances and twice failed to score, really. But I think their approach here will aid us towards a goal-heavy game. So I like the look of over 2.5 goals. Dortmund-Villarreal, 178 at the minute. From a Villarreal perspective, it's not the most statistically pleasing play. Just 8 of their 17 games this season have gone over. They have failed to score in 3 or 4 Champions League games, but Marcelino is really talking up his team's ability and their approach. He's been talking up how unfortunate he feels they've been so far in this competition. They were embarrassed last time out, so they do need to have a bit of a response here. Playing a Dortmund team led by Niko Kovac, who is a pragmatist by nature, but from time to time, or more than time to time, Dortmund do slip back into their old ways of being involved in high-scoring games. I thought they were really disappointing at Man City in the last match day when they almost seemed to accept their fate before a ball was kicked. But their previous games, a 4-2 win in Copenhagen, a 4-1 victory against Athletic Club, and a 4-4 draw against Juventus. So they've scored at least 4 goals in 3 or 4 games. They've also conceded at least 4 goals twice. In 12 of their last 14 Champions League matches, over 2.5 goals has been a winner. At the weekend, they drew 3-3 versus Stuttgart. 7 of the last 9 across all comps have seen both sides score. And I think they will score here, but I think a Villarreal team with Gerard Moreno, who is now fit, Ayoze Perez, Mikatadze, even Nicola Pepe can cause them problems too. So, as I say, Villarreal have been a little bit unfortunate so far in this competition. They have generated 5.25 expected goals, but failed to score 3 times. They're averaging around 14 shots in this competition too. So I think they can get on the score sheet in the game there. Moving on to Eintracht Frankfurt versus Atalanta. I'm going to put up over 3.5 goals at 264. Over 2.5 goals, almost into backable territory in this game. So I'm going to keep an eye on the market there. But yeah, let's be bold, have a swing at over 3.5 goals at that price because it's 1 in 11 of Frankfurt's 17 games this season, including 3 or 4 in the Champions League. Those Champions League games averaging 4.5 goals per game. Their home fixtures this season averaging 4 goals per game. They are 1 point inside the top 24, so of course they need to be proactive about winning. Atalanta are 3 points better off into top 16. Haven't been the most exciting side to follow, but there has been a managerial change recently. Juric has been sacked. Rafael Palladino is now in charge. He looks a much better stylistic fit to Gasperini, who left in the summer. So his first game resulted in a 3-1 defeat to Napoli at the weekend. But yeah, they'll come here and attack. They've got Lookman, De Catalara, Scamacca, all fit and available. Their matches in the Champions League have only seen 2 go over 2.5 goals, but the XG comes in at an average of 3.33. Frankfurt's is 3.27 in this competition. And the big chance averages for these 2 teams in this competition, 6.75 and 5.75 per game. So big numbers, precious points available. As we said earlier, 67% of Champions League games have gone over 2.5 goals. Half of them have gone over 3.5 goals. The average of 3.42 goals per game. Quite like this one to hit similar numbers. So over 3.5 goals at 2.64. And yeah, the long shot, we've talked about the games now. Dortmund, Frankfurt, Chelsea, all over 2.5 goals. And I'll chuck in Liverpool versus PSV Eindhoven for an over 2.5 goals fourfold, which comes in at 5.37. Liverpool, well, we know about Liverpool in the Premier League right now. They're struggling, but goals tend to be a feature of their matches anyhow. And PSV's season has been just quite wild, actually. 4.35 goals per game, 10 of 17 going over 3.5, 12 of 17 over 2.5. 13 of 17, both teams to score, which has also banked in all 4 of their European games. I would expect them to score against that Liverpool defence, but ultimately they're not good enough defensively to keep the Reds out either. So should be goals in that game. So yeah, over 2.5 goals, fourfold. The games at Chelsea, Dortmund, Frankfurt and Liverpool.
Okay, we'll lock that in again. 5.37. You can do multiples on the matchbook betting exchange, and invariably, as I said, you're getting best price on the singles. You will be getting best price on those multiples. Adrian, similar line for you, but you're going to start with your last single, which is Dortmund to win versus Villarreal. So slight difference of opinion, but maybe similar angle.
Yeah, not necessarily. You know, Villarreal aren't a poor side by any stretch, and they have been unlucky. But they did blank, didn't they? At Spurs, lost, blanked at Paphos, lost at home to City, didn't score, and you know they got their 1 point against Juve in a 2-2 draw. So. But it's Dortmund, and it's Dortmund away, and Dortmund in the Champions League at home in front of that brilliant crowd are usually pretty good. You know, they score a lot of goals. Yeah, they're a balanced team. They can go on the front foot and attack, but they can be pragmatic as well. I just think they've got a lot of really good attacking players. You know, Guirassy and Adeyemi and others that can go and hurt Villarreal. And if Villarreal do go positively and do try and win this game, then I think that might play into Dortmund hands because they've got some real live wires in attack that I think can hurt them. I just think Dortmund at home in the Champions League, getting them on side at 1.92 feels about right. You know, they've been scoring goals for fun in the competition so far. Villarreal haven't been scoring goals for fun. So, you know, if that continues, they might only need 2 goals, say, to win this game. So, and that's a chance I'm willing to take. So yeah, 1.92 on Dortmund to beat Villarreal. And then my long shot is an ACCA. So it's a 4-fold ACCA. Basically on my tips throughout this podcast. So I've got Atletico Madrid in there. I've talked about them and how I'd fancy them to be into how they brilliant home record and they need it. PSG against Spurs. You don't need me to explain why I'm backing PSG there. Dortmund, I've just outlined, and the 4th leg is my best bet. So should I go into that? I mean, if you, I'll explain it very shortly, but basically the ACCA is Atletico, PSG, Dortmund, and Galatasaray. Galatasaray entertaining Union Saint-Gilloise. Galatasaray are knocking on the door of the top 8. They can smell it, and Union Saint-Gilloise are having a bit of a stinker in this season's Champions League. So that's 4 home wins, and that comes in at a price of 7.1.
Okay, we'll lock that in. The guys must really be taking on the multiples on the Matchbook Betting Exchange, Mark, because your best bet is a double as well. It's PSG to win and over 2.5 goals in Chelsea versus Barcelona. I thought it was a mistake on the sheet initially, but no, it's a double.
Yeah. No, I had Galatasaray on my shortlist here too, but Mr. Clarke got in there early. So, yeah, I've gone for the double here. Yeah, don't need to sort of explain too much about why we think PSG might beat Spurs. We've done that already. So, yeah, combining it with the over 2.5 goals angle in Chelsea versus Barcelona gets us an even money shot, which really does appeal. As I said earlier in the show, 16 of Barca's last 21 in this competition have gone over 3.5, let alone over 2.5, and 3 of Chelsea's 4 have also gone over 3.5 goals. But the Champions League has been very goal heavy this season. Probably a little bit less jeopardy, as we've talked about previously on the show, is playing into these high goal figures. But yeah, 67% of games so far have gone over 2.5 goals. So very difficult to oppose goals in Barcelona matches right now, and also very difficult to be pro Spurs after their recent performances in big matches that matter. So yeah, PSG to win. That's on Wednesday night, and over 2.5 goals in Chelsea versus Barcelona on Tuesday night, and it pays even money.
Even money, exactly. And Adrian, Mark was annoyed about Galatasaray because not only are they in your ACCA, you're going to add over 1.5 goals and put it as your best bet on the card.
Yeah, I think it's the one that really leaps off the page to me. Yeah, so Galatasaray to win and over 1.5 goals. So really any kind of win except 1-0. Obviously, that's the scoreline they beat Liverpool on, but that could have been much more. They created a lot of chances. They're an exciting team, aren't they? I think they will always look to score goals. Galatasaray won 3-0 in Ajax. 3-1 at home to Buda Glimt. Did take a tonking, didn't they, on match day 1 against Frankfurt? But they've come back from that really, really well. They've got an excellent home record. They really have. Some quite tricky matches to come as well for Galatasaray. So they would love to get the points on the board here that might take them into the top 8 ahead of games against Atletico, Monaco and Manchester City. So yeah, it's a big, big game for them. I think Osimhen is out. But they've got Icardi, they've got Yilmaz, Sané, Gundogan, others as well. They've got a lot of quality and they've got a lot of Champions League experience, haven't they? They're not minnows in my eyes, Galatasaray. I find them quite an exciting team, and the stats do actually bear it out. Only 5 teams in the competition have had more shots on target than Galatasaray so far this year. Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Paris Saint-Germain, Man City, and Liverpool. So in good company, aren't they? They're creating plenty. And Saint-Gilloise are having a bit of a mare. They lost 3-1 to Atletico at home. They lost 4-0 to Inter, 4-0 at home to Newcastle. All this after they did beat PSG on match day 1. So, and you look at their numbers, the expected goals against doesn't make good reading. It's the highest in the competition. It's over 3 expected goals against per game for Union Saint-Gilloise. I just think it might be a bit too much for them over there in Turkey. So yeah, Gala to win, over 1.5 goals, 1.88.
Okay, and they're in the early slot along with Pavos. I feel like every week, Mark, I don't know about you or Adrian, that I'm watching Galatasaray and Pavos in the early kickoff, but it's great. So I feel like I've watched way too much of both those teams. But looking forward to watching both those games, and you see the guys' angles on it bets there. Later in the week, we'll be back for a Premier League preview. And again, as I mentioned at the top of the show, it's going to be heating up right till Christmas. But insights.matchbook.com, full recap of the guys' picks. And if you've enjoyed watching on YouTube, if you can take 2 seconds, hit that like button. It would be much appreciated. But we'll chat to you on Thursday. Enjoy the week's Champions League football. Bye-bye.